Picture this. You're sitting at home and you're too lazy to cook. What do? You order in. With one click on Uber Eats or DoorDash, your food magically arrives at your doorstep. But ever wondered how that works behind the scenes? I welcome you to the 8th episode of our beautiful Python beginner series, and today we'll be learning about functions. So let's get started. So let's first understand what are functions, right? Functions are reusable block of code that is made to do specific task. For example, let's say we are making a code for sum of two integers. So what we'll do is to create two variables first with a value, and we'll store that in another variable and print that variable. This is how we wrote the sum of two integers till now, right? What if you had to do this 10, 20, 30, 40? You'll not write this same code over and over and over again. That's where functions come in. With functions, we can create a function that will add two integers, say 2, 3. Or I'll give a separate variable. So we will create a function that will just add two numbers. So whenever we want to add two numbers, we'll just call this function. So let's say 2, 3, it will directly give us answer without having to write the whole big code over and over again. So there are two types of functions in Python. So one is built-in functions. And another is user-defined functions. So built-in functions are the function that Python gives you already when you download Python. So for example, we have used print function. This is also a function. Let's say another function is type function that gives us the type of the variable that you declared or type of the value. Another function that you might be familiar with is the length function that gives us length of list. So these all are built-in functions. So we don't have to make them, we just call them. Another type of function is the user-defined function that we make. So it'll be made by us. Let's move on to computer screen on how we make them. Okay, I'll teach you how to make functions, what are the syntax, how to call them, and everything. Now let's see on how to define a function. So to define a function, we use the keyword def. So this is used to define a function. And we give a name of our function. So I'll give add, since I'm making a function that adds two numbers. So here now we have to pass a parameter. So I'll give a and b. So what are these? These are basically the numbers that you pass when you're calling this function. If you don't understand it, don't worry. I will get to it in a bit. After that, you start the colon to, again, make sure this is the block of code inside this function. From here, I will just type some code. And that's it. Now what we can do is call the function. So here we'll pass two arguments. That is 2 and 3. What are arguments? Arguments are the numbers or values that you pass through the function when you're calling them. If we print it, nothing happens. Why? Because we forgot to print it. Let's print it. As you can see, it comes. So let me explain step by step on what is this, how are the things, what is this guy saying. So this is the function that we declared. This is the add function that has two parameters. Why? Because we were actually adding two numbers. So we need two numbers. So this is what we call a parameter. So these are the values that get passed through the function to do some kind of operation. You pass these values inside the function to do some kind of operation with those values. Now, since there are two values, these are called parameter. Again, keep that in mind. When we call the function, okay, so I'll tell you one thing. If you just declare a function and don't call it, nothing will happen. Okay, you need to call this function. So again, let me call the function. And let's say you call it. Now here what is happening is it is getting called, but you forgot to display it. So you wrap this inside the print function. Only then it will be displayed. So here, so basically what return does is basically when you call the function, this function gets executed. Without calling a function, Python will just ignore this function. So technically, when you run the code, the starting code that will be executed will be this, because this will get ignored. Okay. When you call the function, it finds the function and goes to the function. So 2 here will be passed through A, and 3 here will be passed through B. So after that, this function will get executed because it got the 2 parameters that it needed. Now here I have returned A plus B. So here I don't need to explain what is this. It's just the sum of A plus B. Now what return does is basically tells whatever value that you're returning gets sent back where it got called. So it gets sent back from where it got called. First, function gets called, goes to the function, and after that, so here we have passed 2 parameter, 2 and 3. So this 2 will go from here, 3 will go from B, and when you return A plus B, the sum, which is A plus B, gets returned back to here. So after that, we printed the sum. Now keep in fact, we have 3 and 3, so the sum will be 5. The value 5 will get returned and take the place on add to 3, which is the function, and when you print it, it will give us 5. That's how a function works. Now let's talk more about this thing return here. So return basically means, again, I've explained it, that returns the value to the point where it got called from. So what if you returned multiple values? I will rename the function to add and sub. I will again change the name from here. So this is the function that adds and subtracts 2 numbers. So if I call it, and as you can see, I have returned 2 values here. Let's see what happens. As you can see, it actually returns in the form of tuple. So this is what happens when you return multiple functions. It gets returned in the form of tuple. So here we have returned 2 values. But what if you didn't return anything? So in Python, there are 2 types of functions. One is value returning functions, another is non-value returning functions. So here, if I create a function, and let's say it's welcome, that just says welcome to this video. So I'll quickly make a function. I will not pass any parameters, so I'll just print welcome to this video. So if I try to call this, let me comment this part out. Let me comment these. And let me quickly call this. So let's run it. So as you can see, it says welcome to this video. So let's see what happens if I try to check if it's returning any value. As you can see, it says none. First, it printed welcome to this video, and it gets returned, but we didn't return anything, so it returns none. So technically, all non-value returning functions are still value returning because it returns a value none, but we call them non-value returning functions. Next topic are arguments. So in Python, there are total 3 types of arguments. One is positional arguments, default arguments, and the keyword arguments. So the thing that we use here, these are called arguments. Again, as I said before, arguments are the values you pass through a function where you're calling it. So these are what we call positional arguments. These are passed in order and their position matters. If you pass 3 here, this will take the value of A will take the value of 3, and B will take the value of 2. If you swap these two values, the values of A and B will also differ when actually making any calculations inside the function. So let's say I do print A and print B here, just to show which value is getting passed. If I print this, as you can see, A is taking the value of 3 and B is taking value of 2, so it's 3 and 2. So what if you want to change it? By not changing the position of arguments, you want to change it on how it gets passed. So let's say you want the B to take the value of 3 and A to take the value of 2. You can do that by using something called keyword argument. Now, using keyword arguments, you can specify argument names when calling the function. So let's say that I want the B, which is in the second position, but I want the B to take the value of 3. I can do B equals 3, and I want the A to take the value of 2, so I'll do A equals 2. So this is what we call keyword arguments. This makes the order irrelevant and improves readability. If I run this, as you can see, A is equals to 2 and B equals to 3. Last and final type of argument is default arguments. So let's suppose that the value of B here, if the user provides the value of B when calling the function, if he provides the value of B, then it's okay. It will take the value of B. But what if the user didn't provide the value of B? So in this case, we can use default arguments. So I can predefine a value here, let's say to be 5. So as long as the user provides the value of B, it will take the value of B that is getting passed as argument. It will be 3. But let's say I didn't provide the value of B. So here, it already took the default argument value, which is 5. So it took the value 5. Now A, we specified value 2, so it's printing 2. So here I have a small problem for you guys, a mini task for you to complete. Pause the video right here and try to do it yourself and leave the code in the comments below. Are you done? Let's try to do it. So here it says create a function that takes 2 numbers as parameter. So let's do it. We'll define a function. Let's say task. And it says to take 2 parameters. So I'll do A and B. What else does it say? Returns the product and quotient of those numbers. So I'll do return. Now product means multiplication of 2 values. So I'll do A into B. And I will return. Now another thing it says to return is the quotient. So I'll do A divided by B. It will return the quotient. So this right here will be returned in a form of tuple. So here I need to call the function. So I'll call the function and I'll pass. What number should I pass? Let's say I'll do 4 and 2. Here, if I try to print this, as you know, it returns in a tuple. But I want the values to be printed in separate. Like I want the values to be printed separately. What do? I store the returned value, which is the task. As we know, it gets returned here. I want to store it in a variable. We have to store it in a variable. So I'll do result. So I'll print the result. So you know that returns in tuple. So result here right now is a tuple. In the last video, we learned how to use index in a tuple, right? So here it will return a tuple. So let me comment and write a note. Let's say product and quotient. So these I want to print it separately. So I can use, in the last video, we learned how to use tuples and how to print the values from tuples using index. So we'll do print result, which is the tuple that's getting returned. And we'll do index 0, which has the product here. This is product is in index 0, so I printed the index 0. I will print result, which is quotient and which has index 1. So let's print it. As you can see, it is getting printed separately. And there you have it, functions in Python. If you found this video helpful, smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to check out coding.com for more interactive courses on different programming languages. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.